Yes, it is Saturday afternoon at Comic-Con, and many of you are filthy and greasy and tired, and you want to die a little bit. But I understand, but we're going to finish this out strong. We've got a great panel today. It's called The Fundamentals of Story. The Fun-damentals of Story. And we have a great panel. My name is Brendan Reichs. I'm the author of the Project Nemesis series and another series called Virals, which was loosely based off the TV show Bones. And I'm the perfect choice to moderate this panel because I generally write young adult novels about painful, brutal child death. So what's more fun than that? It's pretty much the keystone of a good, fun time. But that's the last thing I'm going to say about myself today because we have an amazing group of panelists. So a couple of housekeeping things. The panel will go in this direction. It's called The Fundamentals of Story, and I'm going to briefly introduce all of our authors, and then you'll clap for each one diligently and individually. And then I will ask a series of hopefully not terrible questions, and then we will let you ask some near the end. And so I'll give you guys this little bit of heads up so you can line up and ask at the microphone in the middle there. And then after that, we'll close with a quick lightning round, because I always close with the lightning round, because lightning rounds are amazing. Mm-hmm. So at this point, I'm going to ask all my panelists to turn on and be hilarious and funny. No, just yourselves. Your mic should be already working.
Are they? Yeah.
Are they on?
Yeah.
And I'm going to introduce as I go through the order which they did not sit in, which is fantastic. So we'll do that. Next to me is Jeanne Koch. She's the prolific science fiction and fantasy and horror writer, best known for her Alien series. Oh, we want to start at the top? Do you want to start? Let's do that. Let's do that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
She's written the Alien series, also known, and I always ask this, I want to make sure, the Catherine Kitty Cat series?
Yeah, it's the Alien Catherine Kitty Cat series.
Got it. Which began with Touched by an Alien and her Necropolis Enforcement Files series,
Gotcha.
right?
Yep.
She has more pen names than I can possibly list for you, and she has more books than several libraries. She's a frequent speaker about the business side of writing and publishing, and she joins us to discuss her newest release. Hopefully I'm up to speed, Aliens Like Us.
Aliens Abroad. No, you're not up to speed. I'll discuss it.
Yeah, we're going to go, then we're going to go to that. She writes a lot of books, okay? They come out fast and furious. So next we have Sarah Andersen. Sarah is a cartoonist and illustrator, graduated from the Maryland Institute College of Art in 2014, and currently lives in Brooklyn, New York, and keeps her online profile very clean, so there's not many facts floating about her on the internet. Well done, Sarah. She describes her work as semi-autobiographical, following the adventures of myself, my friends, and my beloved pets. Her first book was Adulthood is a Myth, and she's here today to discuss Cheshire Crossing, correct? Which she wrote with #1 New York Times bestselling Andy Weir, who many of you have seen the last couple years here, and so I would love to hear about that collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Andersen.
Thank you.
Next up is Whitney Gardner. She is an author, illustrator, and coffee addict. Okay. Originally from New York, she studied design and worked as an art teacher and school librarian before moving to Victoria, British Columbia, so a Canadian. And she lives by the Salish Sea. Did I say that right?
Salish Sea.
Salish Sea. I did not say that right. With her husband and 2 pugs. When she isn't writing, she's likely to be reading comics, knitting, or roasting coffee. Again, coffee twice, huh? All right. Her books include the YA novels Your Welcome Universe, Chaotic Good, and the middle grade. You're here today to talk about the middle grade graphic novel Fake Blood, right? Please welcome Whitney Gardner. Next up is a little-known man. He's an actor, a comedian, a screenwriter, producer, director, novelist, best known for his work on MTV's The State, for his role as Lieutenant Jim Dangle on the comedy series Reno 911, and as Felix Unger on the CBS series The Odd Couple. Accomplished screenwriter and writing partner with Robert Ben Garant. Did I say that right? He's not here. We don't care about him. Which films include the Night at the Museum movies, Balls of Fury, and Baywatch, which we just heard a great story about a minute ago. His YA book is entitled Ronan, Boyle, and the Bridge of Riddles. Please welcome Tom Lennon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
And last but certainly least is Brandon Mull. I can say that. I know Brandon well. And we're going to clap now.
Yay!
Now, Brandon's good at this stuff. So he's the author of the New York Times, USA Today, and Wall Street Journal best-selling Beyonders and Fablehaven series, and as well as the best-selling Five Kingdoms, Candy Shop Wars, and Dragonwatch series. He resides in Utah in a happy little valley near the mouth of a canyon with his wife and 4 children. That is sweet. and his greatest regret is that he has but one life to give for Gondor. Please welcome Brandon Mull. All right, so we're going to here to have fun, as that's the fundamentals of this panel. But first, we all also here as working. So I want you to go down and tell me a little bit about your current project, and tell me what makes it fun. And this is the only time we're going to go in order down the line. After that, please jump in and answer anything in any order you wish. So, Jeannie?
Okay, well, you were actually right. My current project is Aliens Like Us. It's just not out.
Well, thank you for embarrassing me, Jeannie.
No. It's not out because it's late. So it's kind of a mutual thing, and it's really fun to be late because you have fun talks with your editor and fun talks with promotions and fun talks with marketing and fun talks with your fans. It is coming, but what is fun about writing that it is taking my characters to the steampunk universe. So I'm very excited about it, and it's in the positive, happy, fun rewrite stage, and it's coming soon, I swear. Please stop asking me.
So my project is CHESHIRE CROSSIng, and it was written by Andy Weir, and I had the privilege of illustrating it. So the fun part to me was that I didn't have to do any work on writing. And I was also a huge fan of his before we were put together. So that was really exciting, and yeah, it was a blast.
Tell us a little bit what it's about.
So it's three classic characters, Dorothy, Wendy, and Alice, reimagined by Andy, and they are all in sort of an institution together and getting treatment, but they have real powers and chaos ensues.
This does seem fun.
Yeah.
My book, Fake Blood, is about a boy going into 6th grade who has a crush on a girl who is obsessed with vampires. So he decides to pretend to be a vampire to sort of win her heart, but he realizes that he's made a mistake when he finds out she's not obsessed with vampires because she's in love with them. She's obsessed with them because she wants to be a slayer. Mm-hmm. And he has her convinced that he is a vampire, just too late. And getting to write about vampires and play around with, are vampires real or not, is fun.
My book right now is called Ronan, Boyle, and the Bridge of Riddles. And it's about a 14-year-old kid in Galway, Ireland, who's an intern at the Garda office of Galway, which is the Irish National Police. And he's a very narrow kid with severe allergies. And he happens to be narrow enough to fit through a hole that in a castle in Connemara, Ireland, and he's able to help this special division of the Irish National Police that deal with leprechauns. And then he gets recruited to the special unit of Tir na Nog and trains and becomes an officer in that unit that deals with leprechauns, cluricauns, ferderigs, shiris, harpies, pukas. There's some other ones too, but spoiler alert, I just told you everything that happens in the book, pretty much.
So when you said narrow, you meant like physically.
He's physically narrow. He happens
physically
to fit through a
narrow.
hole. Yeah, he's a weird little guy. Basically, the character is just me. He's got super bad allergies, and his face turns red right away, things like that. Social anxiety, which you may not notice that I have, but I do. But I should also preface this panel with, I left all my medication in Los Angeles 4 days ago.
Oh, you came to the right place.
Yeah.
Do we need to crowdsource this by any chance? What? Everybody raise your hand. What do you got? No.
If at some point you're just like, wow, Tom seems crazy, that's probably why.
Right, and this is a series of books, correct?
Yeah, the first book is out. I made number 2 on the New York Times bestseller list. So
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good job.
No, it's not number 1, guys. It's not number 1. So Dad will always be right. He was right. Yep.
That's cool. I made number 4, so you
Cool.
got me covered. Brandon,
No.
Tell us about what are we working on now?
Yeah, so my latest book is the 3rd book in my Dragonwatch series. I have a series called Fablehaven that was my first series. It's about a secret wildlife park for magical creatures. A brother and sister discover their grandparents are the caretakers, and there are these hidden wildlife parks for magical creatures among us, and adventure ensues. Dragonwatch is the direct sequel series to Fablehaven. So it's the same main characters, Kendra and Seth, but most of the adventures happen at the dragon sanctuaries, hence the title Dragonwatch.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit more about your projects at the top, and then we will quickly abandon this actual topic because I tend to do that. But what was the least fun or, so you can tell me both if you want, most fun thing about writing on this particular project? Like what drew you to it, or in the middle of it you really enjoyed the most? And feel free to jump in as you will.
Okay. Well, I like writing, so all the writing is fun. On the book prior, the one that's actually out, Aliens Abroad, Kitty's on a road trip. I call it, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back in space with a lot less poop and fart and weed jokes. And so that's always fun, getting to do other things. And the fun part, taking your characters to a completely different universe, is great. The unfun part was that I basically, like you said, I write the Fast and the Furious kind of stuff, and I was actually doing this as Star Trek The Next Generation. Yeah. So I got that out of my
Strong parallels, clearly.
Strong players. So, you can think of all the times when Riker and Picard were just skinnying around. Yeah, so that was the unfun part when I realized what I was doing.
I don't think I followed that at all. That was fantastic.
It is. Saturday, yeah.
Saturday at 3, right?
Yeah, day 4.
A thing I liked about writing the latest thing was when I did my Fablehaven books, the dragon sanctuaries were supposed to be the largest and most dangerous wildlife parks for magical creatures. But in that first series, I only spent a small amount of time there relative to the length of the series. I've always been very nerdy about dragons, and part of the fun of Fablehaven has always been to take, it's kind of a love letter to all my favorite magical creatures and try to do my versions of them, my versions of fairies, my versions of dragons, and maybe show readers some things they'd never imagined before about fairies or dragons. And with Dragonwatch, it lets me dig in really deep to a worldwide dragon rebellion and enormous, dangerous dragons of every description, and thinking of weird kinds of dragons, right? Like that put you to sleep with their breath, or that, are poison from snout to tail, just all these different types of dragons. And for me, that's my kind of nerdy paradise, making up that kind of stuff.
For me, I guess the Ronan Boyle book was fun for me because I've been mostly a sort of a contract writer most of my life. Most of the things that I've written are, have been for like a studio, and that's a really complicated way to write because you're basically, you're a contractor. And things happen in movies, when you're writing movies, that I went to see Night at the Museum 2, which we wrote, and we saw it. We were sitting at the Smithsonian, and we saw the movie, and we're sitting with the president of the Smithsonian was next to us, watching Night at the Museum Battle of the Smithsonian, which is an insane idea for a movie because it's 19 museums. It's not a good idea. We did not pitch that, of course, obviously. But so we're sitting there and we watched the movie, and in our script there was a giant squid that kind of goes through the scene a couple times, and a giant squid goes by, giant squid, and we're like, that'll be fun. And then we saw the film, and there's a huge octopus that goes around through, comes to life and goes around, and it becomes sort of a major character. And at the end of the movie, the president of the Smithsonian leaned over to us and said, "Hey, why did you put a giant octopus in the movie? There's no such thing, but we have a giant squid." To which we said, "Oh, that's weird, because in our script it said giant squid." And then we asked the director of the movie, we said, "Why did you change that from an animal that exists to a thing that has never existed?" And there was a long pause, and he said, "I can't remember." So it was fun to write not in that arena for me. And I got to draw a map. I spent about 3 weeks drawing the map of the land of the Irish fairy folk. And I thought maybe it would be in the book. And then, of course, they took my map and gave it to a really amazing illustrator. So that was fun.
For me, first drafts are always the worst and the thing I hate doing the most. I love revising and making things better. It's really hard to face a blank page. The most fun is seeing the people who I wrote the book for laugh out loud. And you always imagine, you're like, oh, I hope someone thinks this is funny. And then the first time you see someone actually laugh at your book, it's like, oh, yes, it happened.
Yeah, I also know when you get deeper into the drafts, you know, it was funny like drafts 1 through 4,
Right,
and then you're like,
exactly.
this joke is terrible. Like no one's ever gonna find this funny. It's only because you've read it 65 times by that point.
Yeah, there's like zero surprise left in the joke, right? And so,
So I didn't write it, but I guess I can talk a little bit in terms of illustrating. So I think the hardest part for me was working with classic characters. It's really hard to recreate them and not make them look super cliche, and especially because our character for Alice was kind of like a dark Alice, and there's been a few renditions, right? I see you nodding. There's been a few like gothier Alices done. So that was kind of a challenge, but at the same time, challenges like that are really like artistically interesting. So we went through a couple different designs, and in the end I felt like our characters were sort of unique and individual, but definitely, you know, it's hard working with classics, and it's hard keeping things fresh when they're such beloved characters in, you know, the general imagination.
So I'm looking at this question, and I realize Tom's on this panel, so it may be a little bit ridiculous for him. And Whitney touched on it a little bit easier. But like when you guys write, like I got to look at a lot of these works, and they're very funny. Like that's the through line. Like it's called the fun panel, but they're actually extremely comedic. There's a lot to it that's enjoyable. When you write, are you going for funny deliberately? Is that something that you're sort of mapping out and planning, or is it something that just sort of comes out in your work, you know, organically?
It just depends. I'll take it again. I'm sorry. It really, for me, it just depends. When I write as Gini Koch or GJ Koch, it has to be funny. That's the commitment of those names. And so I know it has to be funny, and I just try to make the characters. Kitty Cat is intrinsically, she's sarcastic, she's funny, and she sees the world in a very different way from other people. She thinks outside the box. She does all these other things. So, you know, she isn't cowed by people. So, you know, some big dictator's trying to make her feel bad. She's like, dude, whatever. And things like that. So, you know, she's living her life by whatever Aerosmith is telling her to do. So I try to make the characters funny, and then the situations it's really more the characters' reactions to the situations, though I will say that when I had Kitty lift her top as a way to stop a fight, that was kind of inspired.
Classic fight stopping strategy.
It worked. I'm telling you, man. I still have fans tell me how much they love that scene.
For me, comedy is mostly what I've written most of my life, but for the novel, certainly, I mean, for me, the line on the novel was I wanted it to be certainly very mysterious and sincere. But then, you know, there's a major plot point in, spoiler alert if you haven't read the book, it's okay. That's why we didn't get to #1 on the list, guys. Ronan Boyle is in pursuit of a leprechaun named Wee Glen with gorgeous ears, and a Cluricon, and a Gankanak, which is an extremely beautiful fairy that if humans see them, they fall instantly in love with them, and they'll humans will pull out their gold teeth and give them to the Gankanak, so they pursue them to a popular leprechaun club in Nogbottom, and it's called Bob and Thing's famous pickle parlor. And what happens is leprechauns eat pickles that are 2 million times hotter than a human Carolina Reaper pepper, and then they fart themselves into the ceiling, and they bounce off the ceiling, and it's like their favorite thing to do because it feels really good, and it gives them this out-of-body experience. And then a lot of leprechauns get addicted to it, and they have a life of chasing the fits. So this is a major plot point that covers a lot of the middle of my book that is in this parlor. And as I was writing it, I was like, this is way too stupid. I mean, it just seems so stupid. But then when I got to what was sad about it, that there's a lot of addicts of doing this, and I got into the really the heartbreaking aspects of pickle tooting, and what a tragic thing it is in the leprechaun community, then it sort of, I was able to, it felt okay. It didn't feel too stupid once I got into how sad it really is that they do this. Yeah.
I think we've all learned something today.
Isn't that funny how, though, as you incorporate even a strange idea into the world building and make it make sense inside the world and treat it honestly, there's all sorts of things you can make believable, especially in fantasy, right? For me, I wrote a lot of sketch comedy in college, and it was never at like a high level, but it was comedy skits with an audience, and so it gave me practice writing kind of tight dialogue, and writing for different character voices, and that's been one of the most useful things in writing novels for me.
Sketch writing is the best practice for almost everything. If you haven't done it, it's great.
Yeah, it was really helpful to put it in front of an audience and see what works and what doesn't, and I did it for a few years, and goodness, it was the best thing I ever did for my dialogue as a novelist.
Yeah, it's like doing sprinting as a runner. You just get faster and faster and better.
Or you die. Or you keel
I mean,
over.
I can speak a little bit about it. So I minored in nonfiction writing in college, and everything I've done post then has been comedy. And I don't know what the connection is, but I write a comic called Sarah Scribbles, and then Cheshire Crossing is also humor. Andy has a really like sort of dry, sharp sense of humor. And having done all of this nonfiction work in college, I can say I think humor is like, it's so challenging and it takes so much time because you really have to get to a mental place where that joke kind of clicks in your head. You know, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but it's just like you really have to work off of instinct because people can't tell you what makes a joke funny. So
And the more you try to make something funny, it gets
That's-
less and
Yeah.
less.
That's the riddle I'm sort of trying to unlock here, because it is really hard to write a joke in a book.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. People were like, "Oh, you moderate a lot, you're funny and stuff," but I realized like, "How are your books funny?" I was like, "Oh no, they're not funny. People die. Like it's really it's ugly." But like there's a author named Lance Rubin who wrote a book called Denton Little's Death Date, if you ever read, and it's hilarious. And I read it again and again and again to see like, how is he unlocking these jokes? Like he's clearly writing them, and he actually has some sketch comedy writing in his past. So I think that's the answer, guys. We need to take those classes. One of the other things I want to ask you was, I'd like to a little more about yourselves. So what's the worst idea for either a book or a screenplay that you've ever had? Like the absolute worst. Like you knew at the time or later were told or figured out this is a disaster idea.
Have you seen my IMDb page? it's a
there have
bloodbath.
So I'll give you a minute to think. I'll tell you mine.
I have, okay,
Oh, go ahead. No, you go.
Well, I have a funny one just because you mentioned it at the beginning, which is I wrote a Baywatch sketch for the State, the comedy group I used to be in, and I pitched it. And when you're pitching comedy sketches to people, it's good practice for everything, just meetings, writing, just pitching your ideas, doing the voices of characters, things like that. It's just a great way to get that muscle going in. And so I wrote a sketch, a Baywatch sketch, and it was, I think, Michael Showalter wrote a sketch called Wine Heist that was considered to be the worst sketch ever written for the State, and the second worst sketch ever written was my sketch called Baywatch. It was absolutely horrible, and the producer of the show gave me the sketch back with a note written on the top that said, I was a grown man. I was, 22 years old, and he wrote a note and it said, I think you can do better. And it was so humiliating.
Like a
And
mean teacher.
it was a
right?
mean
Yeah.
teacher thing, and he was the producer of the show, and I still have that sketch. I have it, and I have his note on it. And then 20 years later, I wrote the Baywatch movie. But I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
I used to like to prank my little brothers a lot, and one of my younger brothers used to put a lot of hair gel in his hair, and I would tell him, the longer you keep that gel in, you're going to get hair worms. And then I convinced him that hair worms was a real thing. And then when I started getting into, maybe I'll make some picture books, I was like, I'm going to do one all about hair worms. And a sister and I'm like, the more I started drawing it, I'm like, this is hideous and horrifying, and I hope no one ever reads this.
It's pretty gross, actually.
Yeah, it's not great.
So I've just been on one series for like 8 years, so I haven't really had time to pitch much. But I do know the experience of just writing a terrible joke and having nothing else and like needing to turn it in. And because I work a lot on social media, I can see it in the numbers, and so you can see kind of like charts of how you do. And so it's like a really humiliating experience when you have, it's going steady, and then you have one that just dips really deep. Far, and then okay, back to normal, and I try to just like ignore those, but I think like duds like that are just sort of inevitable, especially in comedy. I mean, you just kind of have to accept that you're going to write bad jokes.
I remember when I was younger, what I would get myself into trouble with was I'd try to do something deep. You know, I'm like a teenage boy, and I'm like, what's deep? Like, there's a girl, and she's not pretty, and she finds a funhouse mirror that makes her look pretty, and like, I'm like, I'm not the guy to write this story. You know what I mean? Like, I look back at some of that stuff I tried to write as a teen, and I'm like, oh, dude, like, you were way out of your like comfort zone, anywhere you belonged writing. But it, I guess maybe that kind of experimentation was healthy, even if I was bad at it. You know.
A couple updates ago, they had different emojis on Apple, and there was one that was just a face, and it looked to me like its face, and it was going like this with two hands next to it. I was like, face hands. That's amazing. And it actually turns out later when they updated it, it's a girl with pigtails. It's not face hands at all. But at the time, I'm like, face hands. And so one of my friends and great author, Ali Condi's in the audience, and she can attest to, I was like, started pitching this idea to her. I was like, it's face hands. Like, we'll do this movie about this emoji, and it had the whole backstory came up. It like lived in England and came down your chimney in like hordes and would eat children. And it was like, the face hands will get you, and they had British accents, and it didn't make any sense. And then we realized, like, this is just a horribly terrible idea. And then they made the emoji movie, and it made like $200 million or whatever, so should have stuck with that one. About you guys, so what's the worst, or what's the least fun job you've ever had other than being a writer?
Oh.
I was a patio installer for a while. That was rough. That was like mortar hoe, wheelbarrow.
You could probably run with this question for a while. Didn't you stack chickens or something?
I was a chicken stacker for a while. That was just Tyson's frozen chickens, like dead frozen chickens. Oh. Yeah. Like, I've done a lot of like things where I'm like, you know what? Someday I'm going to rise above this, darn it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
I took care of goats, and it was the worst job I ever had.
Took care of goats?
Mine were alive, though. They weren't my goats, but they were alive goats. And goats are they're jerks. They don't like people. They don't like you. Don't work with goats.
I was a telemarketer in high school, like down in a basement at a bank of phones. And everyone would scream at me. People would just, every time someone would pick up the phone, he'd be like, hi, I'm calling, and they're like, I hope your family burns in a fire. And I was like, oh, okay, because I'm doing a survey. I'm 16 years old in a basement outside Chicago, but thank you. Yeah, people say really mean things to telemarketers.
I was a barista and a waitress, like all through college and right out of college, and people just like treat you like you're not a human. So I always tip now.
I was a dance hall girl for a week. It was the longest week of my life. And it was, you make great money if you can like somehow make your whole entire being not be in your body. So yeah, so it was not really funny. It's really horrifying, but I made it a whole week, and I will never do it again. I still have nightmares about it.
That is fun.
Yeah, it was so fun. I'm like, why are you asking that question?
So if people want to start lining up at the microphone, we'll take a couple questions from the fans, if anyone has them. But while we're waiting for that, I would say, what's the best piece of writing advice you've ever been given? If you've had one thing that was told to you that you found to be the most applicable to your career, what would it be? And again, if anyone here has questions, you can line up right in front of this microphone, and we'll take some.
No, go ahead.
Finish what you start. You can't publish something that's not finished. Our ideas are wonderful, but they can't do anything unless they're done.
Mine was from Bob Mayer, who has probably like 1 million books out by now. And he said, most first novels don't get published because they're terrible. And you need to write it, trunk it, write something else, trunk it, write something else, trunk it. And then you pull them out and periodically and read them through. You see everything that's wrong, and you keep on doing it. And I did that, and that's why I'm published. So,
yeah. I think for me, it was just the general advice that if you stop, all of your progress stops, and you sort of have to push through those years in life where you feel kind of uninspired. And that doesn't mean don't take moments for self-care and all of that, but you just. Progress is so real, and people make such huge strides as long as they continue. So just keep going.
I had a weird, interesting experience this year, which is I usually write on a little like MacBook Air, and it was in the shop. It was like I broke it or something happened, and then I wrote for an entire week. I wrote in a big notebook. And what I found when I did that, which was really interesting, is I never went back and looked at it. which was incredibly helpful because there's that weird feeling of like, I'm just going to roll back and look at the beginning again and look at that again. And with the notebook, interestingly, I never flipped back. I just kept going like that. It was very
Kept you moving
useful,
forward.
kept me moving, yeah.
I had a guy say, give them you until you is what they want. And I thought that was, for me, that was useful because it was like, it helped me identify the reality that what'll make my stuff special beyond a cool idea is putting myself into the story as much as I can. Like when I say myself, I mean my creative judgment, right? Like let it be music that only I could write. Does that make sense? Like let it be what I think is cool, what I think is funny, what I think is awesome, what I think is dumb or sad, or like really, really put what I like into it. Just be as much as I can, and then trust that because like I guess the alternative would be to chase trends or to chase try to sound like somebody else or try to sound like what you think smart people sound like, or you know what I mean, like versus just be like try to get super authentic and do what you think is awesome. And to me that was helpful. If you write what you're most passionate about, there's a chance someone else will get passionate about it too.
Thank you. Sorry, this is to everyone. You had started to kind of touch on this just now, but as far as your relationship to the craft of writing has been, have you ever needed to take a step back and just sort of go through other life things and then come back to writing? And sort of how has your relationship to it sort of changed?
Yeah, definitely. Like had to embarrass Brandon by saying it's not really aliens like us. I had to take a giant step back with, suddenly this book isn't coming out like anything that it should be coming out. And I was on too much of a pace and I couldn't keep it up. And thank God I have a wonderful editor at DAW, and she was just like, we're pulling it off the schedule, it'll still be there, you make it right, and then we go back out. And that was really good. And it's one of those things that, you sort of kick yourself, I should have done it 2 years ago. But
how many books do you have out total, if you can ballpark it?
If I count where I'm in anthologies and collections and such, over 50.
It's a lot.
Yeah. So, but I mean, and it's wonderful. I mean, this is the best in the thing I could be doing, but at the same time, oh my God! And then life does really hit you sometimes, and you just have to. It's hard to be fun when everything around your world feels like it's caving in, and it is honestly okay to step back. But I really liked what Sarah just said. You have to keep moving forward. Even if it's tiny little baby steps, even if I'm not going to do this for 2 weeks, I'm going to take 2 months off, but then you go back. Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah, I had some really great advice I got from one of my peers is that when you have those moments where you do feel like you need a break or you're in burnout and need to step back, a really healthy mindset is to say, I'm putting this down for now. And so that you're not sort of telling yourself like, oh, I've stopped, how will I ever get back into this? You sort of give yourself the mental space to say, it's down for now, I'm going to return to it when I'm ready. And I thought that was really helpful for me. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll try and get about 1 or 2 answers per each so we can get all these questions in. So go ahead.
What's your favorite quote from a book?
From a book we wrote or from a book in general?
No, not from a book you wrote, from a book that somebody else wrote.
Mine is from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's Don't Panic.
We're all mad here.
Anyone else have one they want to throw out there? Does anyone know any quotes from books?
I also like
In the beginning?
Through the fence between the curling flower spaces, I could see them hitting, which is the beginning of The Sound and the Fury. That book doesn't make any sense.
I always say
Dumb book.
when I do writing workshops, I try and talk about starting with the first action, but I always want to make sure people don't think that means you have to start with actual, like, physical altercations. I'm saying, take your story, where's the first conflict in the story, draw a line through it, throw away everything in front of that, and you can put it back in later. I think for books, you have to start with that. And the example I always would use is it doesn't have to be like violence or anything. It's from Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Appertali. And her first line is, the conversation was so subtle, I almost didn't know I was being blackmailed. And I think it's the perfect example of starting with something that's conflict, interesting, and important, but not physical. So you don't think it has to be someone punching someone in the face. And so it's just a beautiful line. You want to read that book after you read that. You want to know what they're talking about. So I think it's great.
I'll give you one. There's who's that British guy who writes Discworld?
Terry Pratchett.
Terry Pratchett. Yeah. Just his name slipped out of my head for a sec. I knew that you could crowd answer that for me. But he had a line where, like, really concise characterization. The clerk smiled like he learned how from a book. And it was like such a quick, awesome
really
way to
specific.
make a character. You know what I mean? It was great.
All right, thank you. Hello, guy. Oh, we got a lifter. Here we go.
Which book did you like that you made?
Which book do I like that I made is the question to the panel.
Thank you. For me, it's Touched by an Alien because that gave me my career.
It's always the last book I wrote because that's the most recent and the art looks the best. So whatever the one is that just came out.
I've only written 2 books. The Ronan Boyle book that's out now, and I have a screenwriting book that I highly recommend called Writing Movies for Fun and Profit, but fun and is crossed out.
That's pretty good. That's a great title.
It's not fun.
I like my Fablehaven books are fun. If you've never tried me, try my Fablehaven books.
Thanks, baby.
Thanks, buddy.
I'm always fascinated by the ability, the magic of being able to insert comedy and not lose the forward tension, the tension that drives the story forward, and how it actually serves the tension. And I think Marvel does that really well in their movies, and I think there's a lot of authors that do that amazingly well. How do you do that? How do you write the comedy in without losing tension in the story?
You have to remember that your characters are people. I mean, I'm writing for humans, so I want to make sure that my characters have the same human emotion. And I will say it's very hard when you kill characters and then I'm practically contractually required to make you laugh within 3 pages of that. But we all understand gallows humor. I mean, humor is a release. So if you allow your characters to have that release, something horrible's happened, but they can make a joke about, the chair or something else or something that relates, it's relieving tension for the characters, so it's also relieving tension for the readers, and it doesn't seem awkward. But it's craft. It takes a lot of work.
The reason I laughed as you were saying that is I forgot something. In my book that's out right now, I introduce a character called Brian Bean, who's got these great big ears that look like kind of like pretzels, soft pretzels, and he does the best impressions you've ever heard or seen, or anyone's ever heard or seen. And I kill him in chapter 3 of the book. It's my favorite thing I ever did. You meet him, and he's dead 1 page later.
I feel like there's something underlying that we might want to dig in on another panel, exactly what it is about
He comes
impressions.
back, he becomes more powerful. It's actually kind of creepy.
Sometimes when you're as long as your humor is true to the characters and true to the moment, that'll keep your reader in the moment, right? Like so like a lot of things, it's use your creative judgment to make sure this fits the moment, fits the character, fits the story, and then humor might feel very natural, hopefully.
Thank you.
What would you do if you have an idea for a book or movie, but you don't know where to start it?
That's a huge question, right?
Think
You
of
don't know how to
your,
start it, but
think
you know
of
that.
your main character, and then think of something that they really, really want, and then make it very hard for them to get it, and then see how they get it.
And if you can't think of a character, just make it you.
Well, yeah.
Is the workaround for that.
Secretly.
It's very easy.
Secretly, all the characters are you. They're all going to come out of your mind. So if you want, if you're mad at somebody, you can have them be the villain. And if you really like somebody, you can have them be, the hero.
Yeah, use specific names in your work.
Always. Oh, yeah. This is really about you, Mary.
No, full names. Don't let Mary miss it.
Do you want to sell me this movie idea right now? No. All right.
Seriously.
See you in arbitration.
It can be so hard to start. It can almost be scary to start or intimidating, that blank page, right? But just start with a moment, right? Show us a character getting introduced to some trouble, and generally, right? Just start with a character getting introduced to some trouble that kind of leads toward the main trouble you want to have that character facing and the things they want. Just start with a really simple moment, and that can sometimes get you going, you know?
And remember, everything can be fixed in post. That's why it's called editing. It doesn't matter if it's terrible. It doesn't matter if it's not really the start. It doesn't matter. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to stink on ice for a long time, and you have permission to stink on ice, okay? I give you permission to absolutely, positively stink. But then you have to keep doing it. You have to write more, and you have to edit, and you have to try other things, and try different voices and everything like that, because that's the craft of this. This is an art, but it's also a craft, and you have to work it. And if you do, voila, a few years down the line, and it will probably be years, but who cares? You're going to have some wonderful finished work, and you're going to be up here.
Yes, but remember to name your enemies. Thank you very much.
Yes,
Name your enemies.
Thank you.
Good job,
Thank
Brandon.
you.
I'll get that idea from you at some point.
Hate to follow after someone so adorable. My question is, if all of you were to adopt an apprentice for, let's say, 3 weeks, what would you have that apprentice do to start their writing career?
Social media, mostly. Yeah.
Clean my house.
Instagram.
Leave my house.
I sort of was someone's apprentice at one point, which was, I was I had a literal mentor when I was about 16. I had no intention of ever writing anything, ever in my whole life. And it was Peter Hedges, who's, if you know him, he wrote What's Eating Gilbert Grape and An Ocean on Iowa. And he took me under his wing, and he would make me do things like he'd say, hey, we're going to write 5 poems in 20 minutes. And I was like, really? That's stupid. But then we would do it, and it was cool. And if he had a little bit of free time, he'd be like, let's write a 1-act play. And I'm like, well, it can't be good. We're going to do this in an hour? And he's like, it doesn't matter if it's good. You will have written a 1-act play an hour from now. Won't that be neat? And he had me do just different kinds of writing, but nonstop. And it taught me to also write compulsively.
You had a Mr. Miyagi.
I did.
Who gets that?
It was so cool, and he was like really handsome, and he had like cool red hair. Johnny Depp in the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape his hair is Peter Hedges' actual hair. Oh. So I was just like looking at this guy like, oh my God, he's so cool. I want to be him so bad. Yeah.
And we'll do one more question. So we have one more.
Get a Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Or be one. Yeah.
Hi. So I get a little bit nervous, so I wrote mine down. So generally speaking, we all know that character development is important when it comes to telling a story, but with shorter forms of comedy like comic strips and sketches and stuff like that, what would you say is the most important aspect of creating something compelling?
Sarah, you got to take that.
Yeah. I'm thinking if you don't really have the time to create an in-depth character, I think things that work really well on first impressions or work really well fast are things that are very authentic. So I think in that case, it becomes more about presenting experiences or situations that feel really real and relatable. So if you don't have the time to flesh everything out, just think about moments that work for you and other people.
For sketches and things, we had a very, very simple rule in the state. We were incredibly mean to each other and really hard on each other all the time. We genuinely dislike each other a lot and also love each other. So our rule was just very simple, which is if anyone pitched something that reminded us of anything else, it was automatically dead. It just was not something we wanted to do. So we almost wouldn't care how stupid it was, because we did, sketches called H's and M's and the Pudding Guys and stuff. We would go as stupid as you want, but we would never imitate anything.
Sweet.
Thank you. All right, we have 5 more minutes, so we are going to do a lightning round. But before that, I want to say everyone on this panel will be signing at in the sales pavilion at 4:30 to 5:30, except Tom is not
So
going
sorry,
to be there.
I have another panel that I'm on.
He's in a bicycle race or something along those lines, and so he is signing. I do have the information. I believe you're signing tomorrow at the Mysterious Galaxy
Tomorrow at noon,
booth
yeah.
from noon to 1. So you can catch him there. So everyone else on the panel, of course, will be available at sales. Okay, here's our lightning round. It's pretty simple. I'm going to throw 2 things at you. You pick one. That's it. It's the whole game. Got it?
Oh, right.
We're going to go down the line. Everyone's going to say theirs in order.
We don't have to buzz.
Okay.
Yeah, you're ready to buzz. I like that.
Yeah, no. You live in either Camelot or Starfleet Academy.
Oh, Starfleet Academy.
Camelot.
Starfleet.
Camelot.
Camelot.
The correct answer was Starfleet Academy. No, I always make this joke, but it really does come down to toilets. You know, like.
Yes, okay. Yeah.
All right, you have to pick. You have to fight either John Wick or Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne.
John Wick, because he's so cool.
Jason Bourne.
John Wick, mostly because I want to meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to fight him, but I'd like to meet him. Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably just kind of die politely, but yeah, Jason Bourne, I guess.
I feel like you might be able to like not die from Bourne, but Wick is
Right, yeah,
it's a pretty much a
Right.
done deal.
Bourne.
All right, you're gonna go on a date with one or the other, Voldemort or Darth Vader.
Vader.
Vader. Yeah.
Voldemort for sure.
The correct answer is obviously Voldemort.
Probably Vader.
Yeah, I want a nose.
Yeah. Well, there's stuff going on under that mask. I'm just saying, it's not.
There aren't great noses on either department.
Yeah, it's not really a
This
win,
is,
but, it,
yeah,
but
pick your
one is a
poison.
little less creepy.
All right, you have to choose one of these. Your house is overrun by either spiders or snakes.
Spiders.
Snakes.
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 I think spiders.
Who would ever pick spiders? I do not understand.
Because
All right.
those of us terrified of snakes.
You are armed with a magic wand or a lightsaber.
Magic wand.
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 Wand, you can make as many lightsabers as you want.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo.
Only in the Harry
But
Potter universe
still
where there are no
lightsaber-
physical
Oh, sorry.
rules to the magic, but we won't have that panel
Okay.
right now.
And I'll say, but still lightsaber because childhood. I've always wanted one so bad.
All right, you are either colorblind or you have no taste buds. Oh, I stumped the panel, folks. No.
Easy.
Colorblind.
No taste buds. I'm a cartoonist. I have to see all the colors.
It's like a cartoonist, so yes, I need no taste buds, but man, that's sad.
Colorblind.
Colorblind again.
Yeah, food's overrated. Okay, you starred in either Hamilton or The Greatest Showman.
No one wants to see me in either of those.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You were good in this scenario. You
yeah.
were great.
Oh,
You're good. You
okay,
killed it.
Then
Yeah.
Hamilton.
Greatest Showman.
Hamilton.
One day I would love to be the second ever white Hamilton.
Hamilton would be fun. I would be terrible at hip hop, but if I was good, it'd be fun.
Oh, it's the greatest show. Just dance around. It'd be amazing. You are not allowed to wear, for the rest of your life, you can either not wear deodorant or not use toothpaste.
Not
Easy.
use toothpaste because you can still brush your teeth without it.
I would choose not to wear deodorant. I have to brush my teeth.
Yeah, I want toothpaste.
I want toothpaste. I put on a ton of deodorant today, and I smell horrible. So it's not really working anyway, guys.
Yeah, I guess toothpaste with some of that logic, yeah. Okay.
Agreed. Okay, you have mastery of all human languages, or you can talk to animals.
Mastery of all human languages. I already talked to animals.
Animals. I need to give my cat instructions.
Yes, and animals for sure.
1,000,000% animals.
Yeah, animals, yeah.
I don't care what people have to
Instant
say.
Beastmaster.
All a dog's
The
going to say
internet is what people have to say. Who cares?
all a dog's going to say to you is like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Outside? Food time, food time, food time, food time, outside?
Exactly.
That's it, all day long? Don't talk to me, dog. All right. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Yes.
I don't know.
No.
No.
Literally, the opening song is "It's Christmas Time in Hollis, Queens." So yes.
Yeah, I think so. I think we can bend the rules and call it a Christmas movie.
I'm going to sneak 2 more in here. Goonies or Stranger Things?
Which one?
Goonies or Stranger Things?
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things.
Goonies.
Stranger Things.
Goonies.
Goonies never say die.
Because of how it hit me.
Oh, they're waving the sign at me, so I'm afraid that's going to be all our time.
weird.
But thank you guys, and good round of applause for our panelists.